them once again get battered everywhere they go and leave the pundits asking, when can we get rid of this scourge of open play goals? This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter. Yeah, Arsenal have now scored more open play goals than anyone else in November. And I'm sure Sky Sports is getting their segment ready on the scourge of open play goals in football and how we can return to the glory days of putting it in the mixer from corner kicks and free kicks. Something Spurs tried to do, by the way, in a game where they could have just not shown up. And by the way, I don't know about you, but I was watching the Spurs fans at full time, wanted to see their reaction, couldn't find any. And I was looking for one. Ha! Get it? No? All right. Well, it works better in type. Anyway, thank you for being here. Love you for being here. Hope you enjoyed the weekend as much as I did. This is how good the weekend was. I did a Schadenfreude pod on Saturday after the Liverpool and City results, and we got away with it. It didn't come back to bite me. Everyone said you jinxed it. We didn't jinx it. There's no jinxing it when it comes to Spurs. Spurs are their own jinx. In fact, Spurs are down so bad, they are pining for the golden age of 17 lost season managers again. It's real bad for them. It's real good for us, not just in the derby, but in the league overall. So if you want to rewatch, you will certainly be getting one over on Patreon tomorrow, and you can check that out. I think we did the best pod we've ever done is the instant reaction yesterday. Would love to have you for that one. Or just stay here because there's going to be a lot of good stuff going on here. I will say we finally got our merch store off the ground. Give us feedback. Let us know what you think. It seems like it's working now. Shop.arsenalvisionpodcast.com. There's hoodies. There's mugs. There's a Clive mug that has our badge, and it says, "It's just football, mate." We'll have mugs for each of us. We'll have the bingo mug back soon. But yeah, lots of good stuff there. Check it out. I will be dripping in that stuff over the next few weeks. You can guarantee that. Probably also take advantage of some Black Friday stuff over on the Arsenal site today, as I am feeling very, very Arsenal positive right now, and I'm sure you are too. We got to get into this, though. Such a brilliant week to discuss. Such an incredible day. A day of days. One that goes straight into the Pantheon. And here to discuss it with me, of course, is Clive. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
And Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
Okay. I think there is so much interesting tactical stuff to discuss. There's the Eberechi as a side of this, which is, it could be its own podcast. And I bet you can imagine how much I enjoyed Eberechi as his performance and hat trick against Spurs. But I just want to relive the day a little bit with you guys. And so, Tim, I'll start with you because I've heard it said you have a good view from your seats at the Emirates. So you would have had a nice view of the TIFO, the pre-match setup. With Liverpool dropping points, if they're even relevant, and City dropping points, it put just that extra bit of pressure on the derby. And the day felt massive, not just because of the enemy, but because of the context. And so what was your pre-match buildup like? What was the atmosphere like going in? How loud was it? How was the TIFO? What did you think of the whole buildup to the game?
So the kind of build up for me until the point where I arrive at Finsbury Park Station is that this game to me is like the sun. I don't want to look at it. It feels dangerous to look at it. So I didn't really listen to any preview content or anything like that. I'm going back and listening to it now. So I'm going to listen to the one you guys did on Friday now. I didn't want to before the game. But then, you get there, arrive, have a couple of drinks, went for a pizza. Saw Jim from East Lower, actually. Ended up on a table next to him. That was quite nice. And we were both kind of sitting there going, yeah, this feels massive. And I've been trying not to think about it. But ultimately, rational brain. And I've been thinking this for the last few weeks as well. I've been reflecting on the fact, and I hope this doesn't sound like snobby and superior or anything, but how much our fan base has grown since the last time we were actually competing for league titles. And for a lot of people, this is kind of their first rodeo doing all of that. And so, your question about the pressure on the game, listen, when you're going for the title and you're top of the league, it's always pressure. You cannot win the league without that. I'm sorry to tell you, it's a white knuckle ride, and you don't just support your own team, you support the team your rivals are playing. So I watched Newcastle Man City on Saturday night, and you know what? I don't know which one it was, Ant or Deck, but both of them. I was in black and white. I was drinking Newcastle brown ale. I was kicking every ball. I all of a sudden loved Bruno Guimaraes and Joe Ellington in midfield. Not violent players at all. Thought the game was brilliantly refereed, as it always is at St James's Park. and, and so, you know, that pressure is always going to be there. And whatever the result was in that game, everyone would say that puts extra pressure on Arsenal, because if City win, there's pressure. City lose, there's pressure. That's just how it goes. So, but it did come to a stage where it's like, okay, I've got to look at this. And I was chatting to Jim from East Low, and it's like, we should win this. We know we should win this. We know we're much better than they are. And we know that actually the record in the North London derby shows that. They haven't won at the Emirates in 15 years. But there will always be that kind of, you know, scintilla of doubt in the back of your mind. Like, is today the day where they fluke something, or where we go to pieces, or something weird happens? And But yeah, the Tifo was great, by the way, and I have to say, I think it's worth giving the proper context to the last Tifo effort against PSG. I know it was widely ridiculed, but actually I think the club were played quite a bad hand there, because they agreed to do one about 3 days before the game, and the design they were presented with, first of all, I mean, I've sorry, I don't want to offend anyone, I think it was crap. And it was also highly derivative of Real Madrid's Tifo, and I believe the club position was, that's very hubris to do that. And so all of a sudden they were left in a position where they had to knock a Tifo up in 48 hours. So I do think we should give that the proper context, but they nailed this one, and it was great. And yeah, I once the game kicked off, I didn't feel that nervous. I trust this team. That was the phrase that went through my head, and I said it to my mate who I sit with. I just said I trust this team. So, and rightly so.
I thought the Tifo looked great. From my view, thousands of miles away. The sound at the Emirates was special. There's so many videos. There was a video shot from, I guess, one of the flats near the Emirates where you can hear the sound from the flat emanating out of the ground, and it just sounds so impressive. You can sort of catch the Tifo through the opening in the ground, and it looks great. It really felt like a big occasion. And the funny thing is, it felt like a big occasion, but only one team treated it like a big occasion. And I get why Spurs fans are a little frustrated with Thomas Frank. I personally don't give a shit. But the minute I saw their lineup, I have to say a lot of the nerves bled out of me, because this was a Tottenham team that knew they were not as good as us, but capitulated before the game kicked off. And it was often said that the Invincibles won the game in the tunnel. This team is starting to develop a little of that aura. I used to get mad about City's opponents, because City's opponents would make business decisions. They'd rotate for the City game to be fresh for a midweek game or be fresh for the next game. And Spurs absolutely did that. Spurs went conservative. And I'm not saying that Frank threw the derby. That's not really what I'm saying. But deep down, I think he knew we can't beat this lot, and we're going to Paris on Wednesday. And I cannot have two humiliations. And so we made a business decision. And that's the quality of this team, that we're making people make business decisions. Clive, I do want to get into the game, but I do want to just spend another minute on the day, because for you, this was not a day like most days. You were out till way past your bedtime. You saw so many great people. You had so many great experiences in terms of the noise of the ground, the tifo, the way the day felt, and the reaction to the day. Did it feel a little different? Did it feel a little more special?
Yeah, this is one of the best days. I'm sure I say this all the time, but one of the best days ever. The build up to these games is always the same. You feel sick, and then you talk to Arsenal people, and you feel better the closer the kickoff comes. The teams come out, and it's sort of, it's a toss up, Mosquera or Hincapie, and it goes to Hincapie. No one blinked. Just move on. That makes sense. Another lefty on there, and we just go and we did a show on Friday night, didn't we? I sort of said they probably will go to a back five. And they just played the ugliest football you'll ever see. I watched the game this morning, and I could see Gary Neville talking about goalkeeper taking free kicks on the halfway line by the dugouts. What are you doing? What are you doing? And it was all about territory. It was all about, could they get a long throw? Everything that people say that they are the worst version of. And I think we've been unfairly casted, as you know, but yeah, I was so disappointed. Okay, we're all petrified for the game. You think about the worst case scenario, but you don't expect Spurs to be more scared than you. you see what I mean? And they look afraid. And once they go into that back five, they're just not smart. You know, they chase after people and they shouldn't do. They played the pitch in a lopsided way. They just didn't travel well across the pitch to defend our spaces. It was so disappointing, you know. And,
not for me.
Yeah, but from my angle, you know, obviously meeting people beforehand was just excellent. People, you know, Elliot, like Killen, for example, and it was just an excellent build up, an excellent feeling. Tifa, I'm sort of behind it. So I sort of rang home and said, what did it look like? What did it look like? And it looked good after last month to make sure it was good. And the atmosphere was unbelievable. The first few songs everyone sings. And then the Declan Rice shot comes in. And if that goes in, I think the roof is off that ground. Honestly, it is off.
They could do the remodel right away because the roof would already been removed. It
would have just gone. You know,
and
but the atmosphere was excellent. And it's one of those days that you feel very proud of where the club reacted with the Tifo and the atmosphere and what they do with the pyro to make it all like an event. And then you have to think the people in that stadium, they brought their Sunday best out, mate. They really did bring it, and it made for a great spectacle.
Can I just say as well, I planned to kind of stay out past my bedtime. I actually ended up getting home at quite a reasonable time because every pub I walked past on the Holloway Road was like, you can't get in here for at least half an hour, mate. And it's like, do I actually want to drink a beer or two? And I was like, the only chance I've got is to go into Waitrose right now and grab some for the train home. And then I've got a couple of speckled hens in the fridge. So that's what I did. And I got home in time for match of the day.
I'm guessing speckled hens aren't an actual poultry dish, but a beverage of some variety.
It is a beverage, but there were certainly some battered chickens on the pitch.
I really do want to emphasize that if you're going to pick a rival in sport and you want to be able to dominate that rival and have good experiences, picking one whose logo is a chicken standing on a basketball is a pretty good one to pick, because that's never going to be an organization that achieves much. I loved the banter. I loved the way the day played out. I loved that when they did try to sing Champions of Europe, it was just greeted with laughter and derision, which is the only way to greet that. On a great day to remember in N5, Mikel said, well, a great day. I enjoyed every minute of it, from the preparation since the moment that the players came back from international duty. I sensed a feeling that they wanted to be together again, that they were ready for a fight, that they were ready for a big week, and the preparation was top. Then you have to deliver it, obviously, with the energy that our people brought to the stadium. It made a huge difference. I think individually, the players were exceptional from minute one. They were super dominant in almost every phase of the play. So yeah, a day to remember. You don't win a derby 4-1 every time, and hopefully we made a lot of Arsenal supporters very proud and happy. You sure did, Mikel. And before we get to Eberechi Eze, who is going to need a big section of this pod, as is Leo Trossard in my mind, by the way. But before we get to Eze, and the irony, of course, of Eze dominating this derby while Xavi Simons didn't even make it onto the bench, I actually want to take a moment to celebrate Mikel Arteta a little bit and talk about his role in all this. When you have a player who scores a hat trick, just the fourth ever in the North London derby, and you have the tifo and the celebration and the position in the table, there's so much to talk about that the manager doesn't really get focused on. And it feels like increasingly in football, managers only get focused on when they are being discussed for getting the sack. You know what, Clive? Gabriel Martinelli was fit for the bench. Nani Madueke is fit for the bench. Gyökeres wasn't fit. Kai wasn't fit. Odegaard wasn't fit. Gabriel Magalhaes wasn't fit. We only score from set pieces, and we're missing that weapon. Our captain, who does the ball progression, not there. Both strikers, not there. We got to play with this converted striker. This is not a manager who looks for excuses in those moments. It's a manager who looks for solutions. And I indicated in previous pods that I thought we started to see Arsenal understanding how to use Mikel Merino really effectively in the second half against Sunderland. That sort of right-sided midfield role that vacates the top of the box, so the center backs don't know what to do, and then Eze and Leo or Calafiori roll into those positions and confuse everybody. Mikel Arteta dominated this derby with a group of players that you would be forgiven for thinking weren't the ones that were going to win a title. Leo was supposed to go this summer. Mikel Merino wasn't going to find any minutes, right? Eberechi Eze is not going to play in midfield, but he's taken the group that he had available and turned them into a colossus. And I think tactically and in terms of his ability to get the most out of the players who are available to him, this is a day where he deserves a lot of the credit.
Yeah, I think so. I think he's introduced a deeper level of rotation on the pitch, and we are so much more flexible in what we do. There are periods in this game when Rice and Zubimendi are almost like our highest players, pressing on, and there are other times Zubimendi is playing right back, and they're under a bit of pressure. Rice drops in between the centre backs. They just go where they feel, but then they can't just do what they like because the people that are in those spaces then vacate and go somewhere else. If Rice and Zubimendi drop in, our fullbacks press on. Timber sometimes ahead of Saka, and they're comfortable doing it, knowing that if Timber gets bypassed, Saka's an excellent defender, and vice versa. They just do all of the jobs really, really well in a collective way, both sides of the ball. And I think he's introduced some really strong principles, particularly out of possession. We know we're good out of possession, but I think the hunger to get the ball back it's gone through the roof, and it has. It screams to me on the pitch, and when I rewatched it this morning, it was just the same. Players that we're not used to seeing working back, running back, really, really hard. If it's the only thing that matters is that ball, getting around it, stopping an error from compounding itself into something big. And the only time we did make an error and we got punished was like an unbelievable strike from 35 yards out, which could have easily gone over. And we were thinking about it, right? It was a really good goal. But hey, this team's collective desire and hunger is just jumping out. And it gives me a level of comfort. When they scored, Elliot, we started to work and press harder in that period. And it's like, this is what we do. We don't freeze. We don't fall into our own shadow. We go again. We got Rice pushing the goalkeeper. Okay, he's a bit edgy in a couple of transitions, but there's a collective hunger there that I love seeing. And this manager has instilled some really strong rotational principles in this group, which I feel we have to be open-minded to and not just pin, oh, Rice does this and Zubimendi does this. No, they do what's required in that moment. They literally do, and that's the intelligence they brought into the group.
Yeah. Yep. It's great to see. And look, Tottenham did not show up. I cannot emphasize how much they did not show up. They had about 30% of the ball and 0 shots in the first half. They were a non-participant in this game. But you still have to go find goals. You still have to find solutions. And, I that's pretty funny. Mikel was asked what position Merino is to describe it. He said, I don't know, a defensive 9. It's just, he doesn't know. But if you think about what a 9 does, a true 9 influences a game rarely, right? Erling Haaland doesn't get many touches, does he? The key with a true 9 is that the moments of influence are decisive. But Merino finds ways to do that himself. He finds ways to be very uninvolved in moments and decisive in others. With a beautiful clipped ball to Leo, with a lovely little angled pass to Saka, where Saka spun and ran away and then was fouled, so we wound up with a free kick. With those moments and his goals, he embodies a true 9 in the sense that he is decisive in the limited moments where he makes an involvement, and that's a quality that we've leveraged really beautifully. Tim, I feel like there's a lot of moments and a lot of fun little things that happen in this game that I want to call out and emphasize. There's, Declan Rice bodying Xavi Simons and then stepping over him. like he's just an insect, just like, get out of my way. I actually caught, there's a moment in one of the Eza celebrations where Declan Rice pushes the cameraman out of the way. He's like, this is our moment. You go away. He lives to Bosch is what I'm trying to say. But I feel like it's one of those things where it's too big a performance not to talk about Eza early on and often. So let's just get into it. As I mentioned, it's only the 4th ever in the history of this fixture, 3 of which were Arsenal's, 1 of which was the other one. The last time was 1978, Alan Sunderland. Eza had 6 shots in this game. He now has the 3rd most shots taken in the Premier League, behind only Erling Haaland and Jean-Philippe Mateta. Okay? Eberechi Eze is becoming the player that I hoped he could be when I said I thought he could be our 2nd best attacking player behind Bukayo Saka when we signed him. He is a player who, if you get him touches in the final third, his composure, his technical level, and his ability to operate in tight spaces gives him the unique capacity to unlock defenses that have previously stymied us. And this is his game. This is his moment, Tim. And it feels like when that song, Let It All Work Out, played, this is what it was building up to. Thomas Frank said, who's Eza? Of course he was joking. But he tempted the fates, and the fates came back and gave it to him full on.
Yeah, to build on what Clive said, really, what this game is a victory of coaching in terms of these are the profiles I have to work with. How and where do I best utilize them? So you look at the way the goals come about. They knew Tottenham were going to play a back five. And actually, probably in a weird way, I hope this doesn't sound critical to Gyökeres. This is probably more a Merino game than someone like banging up against their lunk-headed centre-halves, getting kicked up in the air. Like, this was much more a game for Merino, coming away, Trossard running in behind, Eze nice and close as well on the edge of the area. And yeah, this game is his game. I think Miguel Delaney made quite a good point as well in terms of like, and I don't know how much, like, I think Miguel has like good links into Arsenal, so I don't know how much this was like his opinion or the club's opinion or whatever, but they were saying like Ezra looked a bit tight, whereas in this game, like, the shoulders dropped, and you look like the first and third goal, he takes his time, picks his spot. That he looked like the Crystal Palace Ezra, you know what I mean? Like, This is my team, this is my job to do this. And I thought you and Scott did like a really, really good pod on Ødegaard last week.
Yep.
Pinch some of what you said and put it in my column, actually, because I was talking about like, obviously you guys were talking about how a lot of Ødegaard's touches have been redistributed to Declan Rice. He's averaging 20 more touches, 20 more passes per 90, because Ezra's quite a low touch player, right?
Just 37 in this game in 90 minutes. Yep.
Yeah. And obviously, like, it kind of sounds, when you describe players as low touch players, it almost sounds pejorative, but it's like, but Ezra shoots. That's what he does that Ødegaard doesn't. And it's not because one is better than the other, but they're two different profiles of player. And I think in this game, we worked out, it's like that Moneyball thing, isn't it? Like, he gets on base, like Ezra, he shoots. He shoots from the edge of the area. He shoots from the top of the area. How do we put him in positions where he can shoot from the top of the area? Because that's what he does really, really well, better than almost anyone in the league. So how can we do that for him? And Merino was almost like foil, I think, is probably the word we're really looking for. And, particularly with Trossard's goal and everything, like, he's a foot soldier, Merino. It's a bit like, how and where do I take all the bullets? Or if you think of it more like, like paintball or something, where you've got to go and get the enemy's flag. Like, he's the guy who runs out and takes all the bullets, and then someone else like nicks in behind and gets the flag. And that's what Arsenal worked out. They were like, they're going to play a back five. Don't bang up against Van de Ven and Romero, because they're, Tottenham's defenders. They're athletes almost. They're like physical guys, but I don't think they're smart. I don't think Romero's got a brain in his head. I don't think Van de Ven's smart. And so what are they going to struggle with? They're going to struggle with movement and subtlety. And it works to a T. It just can't be a coincidence that Eze gets 4 clear shots from the edge of the penalty area in this game. That must be something they worked on a lot, and this absolutely is his game all over, despite the fact there are loads of other great performances.
And to your point, like, when Mikel Merino is anywhere but in the center forward position, Van de Ven and Romero have no idea where to hold the line or who to mark, and so they step up. Udogie's like asleep, and that's how Leo nips in behind. And like, I do think we're going to stop seeing Van de Ven and Romero in these combined 11s here pretty soon. In fact, here's an interesting story. Arsenal fielded for the first time in a derby the combined 11 as their 11, because the combined 11 is just Arsenal players, make no mistake. The thing about Eze, Clive, is that you could snatch at any of those chances. Those aren't tap-ins. Those are passed in left foot, right foot, left foot. Could have had a fourth. In fact, the fourth is the one he snatches out. He really thumps it instead of passing it in. And he was mad at himself for it, by the way. He also could have had the assist to Rice, as you mentioned. But it is, I think, one of the hardest skills in any sport is to slow your heartbeat, slow your mind in the critical moment. There is a thing we talk about in sport called clutch, being clutch. And I know some people say, oh, clutch isn't a thing. I think clutch is a thing in that, can you find your best technical level when the pressure is absolutely highest, right? When the moment demands it. And the thing I love about Eze is he seems the most composed and the most calm when the moment demands it. You look at the way he passes in, is it the
Second.
third? The second?
Yeah.
The second. And it's like he's just in practice. It's just like he's in training. And that capacity to look so calm and composed in tight spaces and high leverage moments in the game, I would argue it's a thing we haven't really had much of. And, if he's going to be the third leader in shots in the Premier League at the end of the season, he's going to be up there for goals at the end of the season. I can tell you that much.
Yeah, there's a technical angle to him that is very difficult to explain. Because again, I'm going to watch this game 100 times each, aren't we? So, but when you look at the ball, that second goal in particular, that ball was bouncing. It wasn't settled on the floor, but he read the sort of bounce and connected in the middle of the ball on his wrong side, falling away, and bang, it's in the net. And as I was doing the IR, I sort of saw it on the screen in the TV and in the ground. I went, oh my gosh, he just passed it in. That sounds really obvious, isn't it? To stay relaxed. All those golfers out there, you know what I'm talking about. Stay relaxed when you're swinging through. The hard, you want to smash it. You want to look at where the ball's going, and what happens then? The ball goes everywhere into the trees, right? Same with him. Keep your body tight. Just focus on the contact. And his contacts were excellent. His England goal, let's not pretend that was easy as well. Very similar. Ball was bouncing. He took the middle of the ball, puts it where he wants it to go. Yeah, he's got a lovely technical aura about him in that part of the pitch. And the manager spoke about his sort of aura in the team. And he used a word called joy. And I found that really interesting because, me and Tim, we watch the benches, we watch the teams, you watch the things off the ball. There's a lot of joy around our club at the moment. There really is. I can sense it with the manager, with Heinz on the bench. They look like proper mates and they're having a good time. The players are having a great time. There's a lot of joy. When there's joy, you can be relaxed. When you're relaxed, you perform, don't you? If you're sticking to the right principles, you can perform. And I sense that of Eze. And maybe this team, I needed this, Elliot. Needed this sort of extra element of a couple of 27-year-olds coming in forward areas saying, we're coming here to win and we're going to bring something that you guys need. I think they're both with Gyökeres. I think they've both made a huge difference to how we feel about the defensive part of the pitch. Let's be honest, we've been really good collective group, but we score as a collective. We haven't had those sort of high-level talents. We've adapted people into areas. But I have to say, Eze has really, really growing on me. The Newcastle game was the one, mate. That was the one. He could have got a hat-trick that day. And we'd have all... and easily, same position, great technique. That was the one where he signposted what he did on Sunday.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting. Mikel said this before the match about Eze. A lot on whether there's more to come from Eze. This is before the match. He said a lot because those relations you have to build, and a creative player needs to understand that. It's all about connections and timing and about being in flow. He's playing in a different position. The more he's settled in one of the positions and has had to interact with the players a bit more freely, which he's doing at the moment, his natural talent will come out and he will have an even bigger impact on the team. Well, Mikel, you nailed it. Post-match, Mikel said, on Eze taking his chances, I think this is a really important quote. Quote, yeah, and it doesn't have to be perfect. It can be right, left, ball on the ground, bouncing, ball at his height, and he takes it. And he has such a quality and capacity to finish actions in different ways that we need to play him very close to the box. Because apart from that, obviously, for example, the ball that he put to Declan in the second minute, I think it was, to play him through and create that big chance is exceptional. We need to play him in his qualities. The more he spends time there, the better for the team. And that's the thing, Tim. There may be this feeling that Odegaard is out and Eze is in. Eze is not playing the Odegaard role. If anything, in this game, Merino is playing the Odegaard role. He's in the right side of midfield. Declan Rice is taking on the ball progression role, and Merino is taking on the screening and pressing role. And Eze has just been given a role by Mikel. This is where I think the great coaching comes in, like you heard in that quote. Get near the box, occupy a space around the top of the box, because we know if we put the ball on your feet in that area, you're going to do something devastating. And he devastated Spurs in that zone. And so maybe there was a little all of us were doing in thinking it was a 1-for-1, Odegaard out, Eze in, and we were evaluating him wrong. His 37 touches in this game were the 37 touches that were decisive in the game. But that's a different way of playing, and we found a way to get him in the right zones. That's where he's going to be devastating this season. And the irony, of course, we're going to talk about another play in a moment, because when Odegaard comes back, it'd be easy to say, oh, well, you just slip Eze into the left wing and he can come into the center from there. But you got a bit of a problem because that guy's playing pretty well too. So what do you think of that? The idea of Eze playing a role that this Mikel Arteta Arsenal typically maybe hasn't even employed.
Yeah, and that's to me, that's the most impressive thing about Arsenal this season, is the amount of different faces they can show. So you think about, the last block, which, before this international break, which I think is really underrated because of how many attacking injuries we had. So listen, we didn't do the same thing in every game. So this is a bit of I'm taking some liberties here, but essentially what we did in that last block was, okay, we'll lean into being really solid, and we don't need many goals to win the game, and we'll be nice and solid. Yeah, we'll get some goals from set pieces, and we'll lean into that side of our game. We come into this block, we're getting some attacking players back. We've got one of our bigger defensive linchpins out. And so I'm thinking ahead of this block, and I know you guys have talked about this as well, that almost flips a little bit. It's like, okay, we've got to be a different team this time around. And that's how the squad's been built. There are so many different kind of profiles at the moment. And look, a lot of this is not a mystery as well. Like, I know Phil Costa reposted on Twitter something he'd written his profile on Eze, and he was saying, like, Arsenal signed Gyökeres, Madueke, Eze, all three of them in terms of shots per game were higher than any Arsenal player last season. Like, it's not very difficult to work out. What Mikel Arteta wanted was a little bit more rolling the dice from the edge of the box. And, I always go back to that Everton game last December that we drew 0-0 at home, and we saw the horseshoe of death, and we saw give it to Saka and hope he can do something. That's the game I think of most of all of those draws last season. That was the one that really sticks in my mind, and I think it might stick in Arteta's mind. I think that might be one that got big rewatch treatment over the summer, and it was like, I don't want any more games like this. I don't want any more games where Sean Dyche turns up or Thomas Frank turns up and puts 11 behind the ball and we can't do anything. I want shot monsters in the team. And look, we didn't need it on this occasion, but at some point in the season as well, we're going to do that off the bench as well. We had this game won on like 46 minutes, but there are going to be games where it doesn't go for us. Those Eze shots don't go in, and then it's like, okay, we're bringing this player off and we're bringing Madueke on, or we're bringing, I was thinking before this game, how nice it would have been to have Odegaard on the bench. Again, didn't need him in the end, but the impact he made at Newcastle away was huge when he came on for that last kind of 15 minutes. I think that really wins us the game. And so we're going to be able to throw a lot of this at teams in game as well. We haven't had to do it really for a little while. And actually the one time we needed it was Sunderland when we didn't have it. But I think, like if we'd needed it yesterday, yeah, we could have taken Trossard off, put Eze left, brought, like there's just, there are so many faces to this team, I think. And I think that's what makes us look the most formidable, I think.
Yeah. And I love that about us. I have to say, sometimes you have to update your priors, and I am certainly guilty of being someone who thought the way you win titles, the way you win Champions League, the way you win the big things is you find a way of playing and a group of 11 players who can go out on the pitch, game in, game out, and dominate, and you really push the pedal down on that. And Mikel is forcing me to rethink that, because he's showing that you can have different faces for different opposition and different ways of deploying the players at your disposal and still be elite. But I don't think everybody can do that. I think it takes a special manager and a special group of players to do that, and a special group of players who are willing to rise to the occasion when their moment is called upon, and then go back to maybe not being the featured player in other moments. And the team seems very together and very willing to do that. I want to get into Leo Trossard, but I want to hit the data real quick just to give you an idea of how much of an absolute hammering this was. It was a demolition derby for sure, and it was 1.93 to 0.07 expected goals, up there with the worst Tottenham performances of all time in a derby and in any game, really. They had 3 shots the entire game, none in the first half. chasing the game down 3-0. They managed 3 shots. Not one of them from inside the box, of course. The touches in the opposition box, 27-4. That's right. They managed to touch the ball in our box 4 times. That's how much pressure they were able to put on us. It was an absolute destruction. Of course, we won the duels. It really just was a blowout, 17 shots to 3. So I want to talk about Leo Trossard as well. Obviously, he opens the scoring, and what he's doing this season really warrants some focus. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about City and Liverpool, by the way, and Bayern. We got a lot to get to. I'm going to tell you about 2 brands quickly before you accuse me of not caring about how you're going to get through your life by utilizing the services and products that are necessary for you to feel happy and contented. Because primarily I see that as my responsibility. Obviously, the majority of those products are at shop.arsenalvisionpodcast.com, but you can find products in other countries, videos in other countries, and indeed TV shows in other countries by using a VPN. And the one that we recommend is NordVPN. NordVPN.com is the place to go. NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. You will get a huge discount on your plan and 4 bonus months on top. Here's the deal. It works on an iPhone. It works on an Android. It works on a PC. It works on a Mac. It works on all your devices. And all you have to do is tap where you want to browse. And then you can watch things. So when someone says, have you seen this video of Spurs being humiliated? It is the best video on the internet to showcase just how pathetic they are. You need to see it. It's hilarious. And you click it and it says it's not available in your area. That's your day ruined. You had a chance to see Spurs humiliated. You could, but with NordVPN, the day's not ruined. You simply say, tap, browse. Now you're watching it. You can also get streaming platforms in other locations where they're less expensive. You can keep threats off your device because they have threat protection as well in case you're on a dodgy stream. So NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision, NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision, NordVPN.com/ArsenalVision. Get 4 bonus months and a huge discount to it now. And if you are building your own merch store, the way to do it is with Shopify. I have built multiple Shopify sites, and what I can tell you that I like about it is a few things. Firstly, that if you want to be able to sell on TikTok Shop or Instagram Shop or Facebook Shop or wherever you need, it integrates with that. So it makes it very, very simple. It is a no-code solution. What do I mean by that? You type in the description of your product, you upload the photos, and it does the rest. It'll handle things like cart optimization and reminding people they have something in their cart and taking care of tracking, shipping, and taxes and things that you need to do. If you want to sell your product and you're passionate about that, and you want your website to look like it could support a Fortune 500 company, and you don't want to have to worry about the technical components, that's what Shopify is there to do. And you can do it with a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ArsenalVision, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ArsenalVision, all lowercase, to start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/ArsenalVision. Do it now, Clive. Is that enough of that?
Indeed.
That's it. Clive. Smart people like myself say smart things all the time.
Yep.
That's what it means to be smart. You know, if you are an intelligent orator like myself, you are going to say lots of smart things. And one of the smart things that I said, a couple of them, not only should we sell Leo Trossard in the summer and that it was questionable to give him a pay rise for no reason, but also that he likely would have no access to minutes because, of course, Arsenal would have full fitness all season, making it difficult for him to break into the squad. Now, those things, I don't want to say they were wrong. I want to say they were historically, stupidly wrong. And I have said in recent times how wrong they are, and it is important to acknowledge when you are wrong. We showed our faith in Leo. We gave him the pay rise. We showed him how important he was to our group, and he's rewarded Arsenal with performances. And when it comes to Leo Trossard, Mikel Arteta said something. He was asked, could Leo have left in the summer and his performance day? He said, yeah, for me, no, because for me, it was forbidden for him to leave. No chance. I know the player that he is, and surrounded with the players that we have, he's a player that is going to make a difference for us. I fully agree. It was one of the best games. So aggressive with him without the ball, so effective. He could have scored another 1 or 2 goals, and he was involved in so many positive actions. That's what we need. And as I said individually, the players were excellent today. Clive, Leo was brilliant. I'll tell you something, though. I'm with Mikel. The aggression in this game was different. We were playing out balls to him. He had Jed Spence on skates, on toast all game. Jed Spence wasn't winning long balls. He wasn't winning duels. The Jed Spence penitentiary, all the inmates were just pouring out of it, okay? This was a big, big day for Leo, who, in addition to the goal that gets us going, I thought influenced every phase of play.
Yeah, highly intelligent player. He knows that Jed Spence is faster than him. So what he does, the moment Jed Spence looks down at his boots, he shoots off in behind him. And he's got a couple of yards. He's just very clever. He dummies, keeps people on balance. He dummies short, goes long, and vice versa. He's just very clever. When he gets the ball to his feet, He doesn't waste a touch by not making the player, his opponent, be unbalanced. So he'll chop an angle and chop another angle. So straight away now he's in charge of the attacking duel because he's got them where they want them to be, and he's just very wise. I think sometimes with footballers, you get to a certain age where you know the game, but your legs fail you because it takes too long to get there. He knows the game, but he's so efficient with his physicality and what he does with his body. I think he's got better. Touchwood, he's been really robust. He's got loads of appearances. He's known to be someone that looks after himself really, really well. Again, he knows who he is. He knows his body. And there was a period in this game when he went down injured, actually. And we actually lost some momentum.
He got his ankle raked. He got studs down his ankle and then stepped on his foot. Yeah, it looked kind of nasty, to be honest.
Yeah, and he was down for a while. I was a bit worried, right? And because we needed him. I felt we needed him, and he was really doing well on that side. But the game lost momentum when he was down, and I felt it was a key moment. We got it back when we scored, obviously. But he's just clever. He's just wise and clever, and technically his finishing is really, really good. And yeah, the thing that's shook me this year is just what we're seeing and what we're all reading is how he's developing into one of the team's leaders, right? So he's been here a while, but it looks like it now, doesn't it? He's really, really part of it. He's earned everything that he's got, you know. So yeah, I'm a fan of him from a game understanding point of view. And I keep saying it, Elliot, there needs to be a podcast about him because without his goals and assists, where would we be? You know,
since
seriously,
he signed, I think Phil quoted this the other day, and I think it's right. I think he has the most goals and assists output of any Arsenal player since signing. Non-penalty goals and assists, yeah.
I can't even imagine it. When we signed him, and well, we did loads of videos on Mudryk, didn't we? I watched every comp in the world on that guy, honestly. I was sold till the money went high. Imagine if we didn't have him. You know, that was a definite moment where it landed the right way for us, shall we say.
The less said about that other timeline, the better. I'm glad we're living in this timeline. Let's just say that. I wonder too, you know, sometimes who you train with can influence your performances. And Tim, I have to say, I see some Bukayo Saka in Leo Trossard. And what I mean by that is the way he rolls a defender, the way he's learning to use his body to get a guy on his hip. They have that low center of gravity, big, strong legs. They're able to hold players off with their backside. And he's doing some of those things that I think Saka does. And you saw it against Spence where he'd get his backside into him. He'd let him get tight and then he'd roll him to the inside so he could set up a play. I mean, is it for one of the goals? I think he plays a ball out to Saka from a central space. He rolls his man and then he spins the ball out to Saka. Really beautiful. He's also, his intelligence to know where to go, it has come up levels. I mean, he knows when to be in the middle. He knows when he needs to be on the outside. He just seems to really understand his role in this team. So I think it's wonderful. And it is always, I think as fans, hard to get away from the what's our best 11. You know what I mean? That's the thing fans do. I do it. I think we all do. Oh, but is he in our best 11? And while those are things that are natural as fans, for players, I think if you just get your head down and get to work, opportunities present themselves, especially if you're at the level. And whatever you think our best 11 is, or however many starts you think Leo's going to get in the season, somehow he finds a way to make himself undroppable. And he's been a key part of this season. And he was a star in this game, I thought.
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that's really interesting about Trossard, talking a minute ago about the different profiles of player we have, Trossard has all the profiles. That's what's really fascinating about him. When we bought him from Brighton, a lot of the focus was on his versatility. And we were thinking of that, I think, in terms of Brighton even used him as a wing back, like on both sides. You know, used him as a false 9, used him as a 10. The interesting thing about the way we've used him, almost entirely off the left. You know, he's had some games as false 9, but we don't even really do, well, in a sense, we don't do that. He pops up in those positions. And what's really interesting about him is he's almost malleable player, I think. And that's why he's been like, he just takes on whatever the team needs him to be. So like, I've said before, I thought he had a great season last season. He really did. But I think people noticed it less because his assists went up. So I think 23-24, I think he gets something like 12 goals and 1 assist in the Premier League. And obviously the goals get all the headlines. And then last season, I think he got 8 goals and 7 assists, or 7 goals and 8 assists or something. He got more goal contributions. It's just it flipped to the more creative side because we lost a load of players, and all of a sudden he became very important to build up. And I think what's so fascinating and what's so kind of his biggest strength is just like a chameleon. Like whatever the team needs him to be, he can assume that form. And I think it's really incredible that like we found his versatility, but in a very new way. Like he's always pretty much playing the same position. You even think of the end of last season when we were first playing Merino up front, Trossard was the one who was going out to the right quite a lot. And, you know, like he just seems to be able to do whatever we need him to do at any given point. I think there are some intangibles as well. And James was talking about this on the Arscast earlier. I thought it was a really good point in terms of like, he's 31. If he ever wants to win the league or the Champions League, it's got to happen now, basically, for him. And Arsenal didn't extend his contract either. They gave him a pay rise, but they didn't extend his contract. Like, it's close to now or never for him. And I think he probably knows that. And he's already, I think, an incredibly competitive person. And another interview that always sticks in my mind is that one Ramsdale did, when Ramsdale seemed to be appearing on more podcasts than us. When he first started, when things were going quite well for Aaron Ramsdale.
And you're lane, Aaron. We got to make a living here.
He was behind the mic a lot when things were going well for him. But he gave an interview and he was talking about Trossard, and he said like a lot of people, it was just after he arrived, he said a lot of people were looking at it as a squad signing, but he said Leo Trossard has not come here to be a squad player. He said in his mind he's come to take a shirt. And I think you still see that even now. Like Madueke's come in, Ez's come in, and all right, a lot of this is opportunity because of injuries, but it's just like, you know, like, and it's a wonderful position to be in as well in terms of reintegrating some of these players from injury. We don't have to rush Ødegaard in like we did last season, where we stuck him back in the team every minute of every game when he probably wasn't right. Madueke, we can just give him 5 minutes, like a fun run for 5 minutes at the end of the North London derby when we're 4-1 up, and we don't have to rush him in. Like, it's just a really nice position to be in. It'll be the same for Havertz when he eventually comes back. It'll be like, okay, you're a really important player, your time's going to come, but you know, Gyökeres, Merino are there. You know, we can reintegrate some of these guys a little bit more slowly, and a lot of that will be because you won't be able to get some of these players out. And I also think, just to close this, sometimes I feel really guilty saying this because I love the guy, but even having like a Ben White in his position in the squad at the moment probably has a use for the other players in terms of look at how much work this guy did. Look at, and probably still does, look at how important he was. He can't get on the pitch at the moment because that's the level, and it's not his fault. It's like, don't miss too much football, guys, because you know you
won't
might
get your spot back.
Yeah, Jurrien Timber, Leo Trossard, like it's not going to be easy to get your shirt back off those guys.
Yeah, there's a certain poetic justice to the first goal in the derby being created by and scored by players who, at the end of this transfer window, I would have thought were a bit surplus to requirements. How's Merino going to get on the pitch? How's Leo going to get on the pitch? Well, they're not just on the pitch; they're on the pitch, making the decisive moment happen in the derby. I mean, it's and it's a beautiful testament again, I think, to the manager building a squad where everyone stays invested and feels valued. I think there's not much to say about it, and I don't want to overdo it, but we should at least mention that without Gabby, we had to pick a center back, and Mikel went with the lefty on the left-hand side, which, you know, we probably should have just assumed that's what he's going to do. I thought it'd be Mascara, but it makes a lot of sense, you know, for it to be Hincapie. And Clive, I have nothing negative to say. I mean, the problem is, right, we faced an opponent who had so little interest in contesting the match that it's hard to really analyze Hincapie too deeply, and I don't want to go over the top just because of the enthusiasm of the moment. But I thought he did well. Where I thought he did really well is he looked very comfortable on the ball so that we could progress the ball. But it's a good, soft introduction for Hincapie. I mean, the irony is you think, wow, first start at center back in the derby. Couldn't have been easier, you know?
Yeah, you still got to do your job. You still got to look right. You still got to take away the feeling of vulnerability. So we lose our most dominant defender. So whoever comes in is not going to be as dominant as him. But how do you then come into the team and bring something else? And I thought he was very good technically. I thought he tracked his men quite far in. I think he made a tackle in the box, opposition box one time. So he wasn't afraid to really be disruptive. I think he'll get better at that, and he'll get tighter at that as well, and be even more aggressive. I think that was really good to see. Tim spoke about the Everton game earlier on. That's why the game stays in my mind. And one of the things that stays in my mind about that game was I felt our technical level was quite low on the day. And I looked at the pitch yesterday and I thought technically we looked really good. So many people are good on the ball, and I include Hincapie in that. Ball's coming in, it's accurate, it's crisp, body shapes are right, going in the right direction, pace of pass, turning away from danger, knowing when to just clear it. I'm loving this about the group. Just clear the ball. Don't worry about it. Don't try to keep it in an area where you're not sure where of your bearings. Go back to a goalkeeper, put him under pressure. Just clear it. Deal with it. And players like Trossard, they're reading that and they're going in behind. And it's like it's really good to see it. I was one for Mosquera as well. Not massively. I chose the physical element, Elliot, just a bigger guy. But it didn't really matter. And I sort of said on the IR yesterday, if you've got 4 lefties in your left-hand defensive unit and you lose one, and then the manager then brings a right footer over to play the left centre half, those lefties will feel a little bit discouraged, So, like there's a good chance that Miles might play in the week. You can see that coming. And that means everyone's active in the squad. I mean, Tim spoke about this on the women's side of things before. Early in the season, there wasn't enough players in the squad active. If they're active, when they have to come in, they can deliver. And so this is a really big moment for the activity of our squad. It's a big week for it. I think we're going to see, the next couple of games, we're going to see a little bit of movement just because of the nature and intensity of the games that we're playing.
My theory for the centre-back decision is very, very much about aerial duels. Again, I revisited the profile Phil wrote about Mosquera on Arsblog when we signed him, and I think last season he was 45% for aerial duels. This season he's 36%. Hincapie won all 3 of his aerial duels yesterday, and I think with Tottenham, I mean they didn't get close enough to get corners or long throw-ins, but I suspect the calculus was much more in Big Gabby. We've lost a big aerial presence, and that's what we need to replace against this particular opponent. I still think we'll see Mosquera, and he did play left centre back at Valencia mainly. So yeah.
Yeah, funny enough, Tim, when you say that, because I, in my mind, without looking at the data, had Mosquera as better in the air than that, but that's true, right? It's there. So I'm hoping he's going to be improving that way because I think he's really dominant.
And Mosquera has played a lot of football for Valencia, but he is quite a bit younger, right? I mean, he's 21. Hincapie is about to be 25, I believe, in January.
He's 24, I think.
He's 24 currently, about to be 25, right?
I think he's 23 currently. I'm guessing
23, about to be 24. Okay,
yeah.
That same thing, really. if you think about the age of the universe, those things are really the same. No, he's about to be 24, as you said, but a 2 year and a half age gap there. Obviously, he plays for his national team, so maybe a little more top-level football experience, having played for Leverkusen in a title run versus playing for Valencia. A little bit of a different kind of experience there. So maybe the experience factor is a part of it. But we're lucky to have both of them, obviously. I think, like I said, the thing that makes it hard is Spurs really were not in this game. But Clive, I think that one thing that can happen sometimes when a player achieves a very high level, every podcast can sound like a hagiography, like you're just there to praise them. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to do that. I want to find a way to be analytical in our analysis of certain things, but I'm running out of ways to be analytical about Declan Rice because he's able to influence the game in every third and in every kind of contribution, right? So off the ball, with his ball recovery, is extraordinary. I think he led us in final third entries passing today. In the absence of Odegaard, as we've discussed, his touches have come up, his passes have come up, his ball progression has come up. He's a little unlucky not to score. If anything, he hits that too sweetly. And that is a really tough technique, by the way. The ball's coming kind of over his shoulder, keeps the knee down, hits it on the volley beautifully. He plays the ball into Eze for Eze's first goal, I think, right? But when he slides it immediately to him first time, he's worked on his game, you can tell, because now he's not just a specialist at carrying and recovering the ball. He's doing a lot of everything. And that moment, like I said, where he just bodied Xavi Simons. There's also a clip going around, one of the clips that the club put out. I think it was at 3-0. You can hear him say, "Let's kill them." Like he's just, it doesn't matter who wears an armband. Bukayo Saka wore the armband, and he's our star boy, star man, and it's great that he wore the armband. I think the armband discussion can be a little bit tedious at times. Leadership isn't just about who puts on an armband, and he exhibits a lot of leadership in the way he plays.
Yeah, I think he's really the guy that pushes momentums now. When they scored, he sort of jumped out a little bit on a couple of presses and got bypassed a bit, and they got a couple of transitions. But the fact he took it on himself to go and get the ball and be aggressive is actually, I quite like that. Not let the game come to you, go and get it again. So he's the guy that drives all the different momentums, and maybe that's where he has replaced Odegaard from that side of things, because I think Odegaard reads the game as well, and he reads momentum of the game. Maybe he slows it down a little bit when it needs to be, and he speeds it up. And Declan Rice has done that. I think, just think back to when he came, right? We knew he was good. We knew he could whack it diagonals. We knew he could get around the pitch and win duels. But I think his technical level has really gone up there massively. His ball striking is superb. Just look at his left foot. So again, just look at. Do you remember when he used to come? He never used to see the ball on his left foot, and then roll out of it. Now he's doing it continuously. Sometimes he's playing passes of his left foot. He's using that side of his body a lot more, which opens up the pitch to him a lot more. Yeah, I mean, this is where the manager just not getting enough credit for his player development. This guy was a very good player when he joined. That's hence why he cost that number. But I think he's gone through the roof technically, intelligence-wise. Now, England used to use him in the six. Now they wouldn't dream of it, because he's got so much to offer. And that's good use of resources. But you've got a player that good, why would you restrict his role? You would open his role, wouldn't you? You'd make him do more than one job. Consistent thing I've been saying for a while. But yeah, my one worry about this team is those centre mid two. I think they are absolutely fantastic. Yeah. And in every other position, I look around and think, we're all right. We could do something. Even Kepa, he's fine. He plays like Raya. He'd get up to speed. He was excellent for Bournemouth last season. We got fullbacks cover. We got centre back cover. Okay, you don't lose Saka for too long, but we got something there. This Rice and Zubimendi thing, I think their intelligence has brought something else to us. That I think it might have been the Forest game, Tim, where I think Rice sat out and Merino played in the 8, and they did really, really well. And Merino put his best number 8 game. But I don't want them to out team too often. And that's not right. It's going to happen. It's going to happen. And how we deal with that is going to be interesting, because Norgard, for me, is much more of somebody that should relieve Zubimendi of minutes. But I want Zubimendi to start every game. I want Rice to start every game. And I know that's inconsistent, because you know what I'm like when it comes to players starting every game. It's not going to happen. But that's what I see on the pitch. I think they are the brain of this team now. And that's, I worry about that. I worry about that.
And look, when the captain goes out, when Martin Odegaard goes out, the guy who was responsible for ball progression, who often had among the most touches in the game, along with usually like a Saliba or something, someone's got to elevate their game. And that person has been Declan Rice, Clive. I mean, he had the most touches in this game.
Just as you were talking there, I thought, you know what? When Odegaard does come back, the player that he might end up not replacing, but rotating with more than we realise, maybe Zubimendi. You can see that just because of the roles.
Well, we saw it. It was West Ham, right? Because it was Rice, Odegaard, and Eze.
Yeah. And I just think, there's something there. And look, every game's different, right? We know that. But it's going to be interesting what happens, because Odegaard will come back, and he's not a bad footballer. Right? And he will drive decisions, right? So.
But you look at how he, in NBA terms, you'd say fills up the box score. A player who fills up the box score is someone who, scores a lot of baskets, gets a lot of rebounds, has a lot of steals, has a lot of block shots. Well, Declan Rice had the most touches, had the most passes into the final third, created the most chances in the game, had a near goal, right? I mean, a little bit unlucky.
He's an all-court player, right?
All court. Yeah, that's another way we'd put it, right? Yeah. A lot of tackles, a lot of ball recoveries, wins his duels. He does a little bit of everything. And he has the unique quality, and I think you need players like this. I think Declan Rice is better in second halves than first halves. right? He grows into games much like he grows into seasons. When his legs start going and warm up, that big body of his limbers up a little bit and he really comes into it. It's fantastic. We have to talk about their goal just briefly. I don't want to spend much time on it, Tim, but I'll just say this. I think there are people that will say it's a Zubamendi error, and it is in the sense that he gets robbed. There's some people that might say a taller goalkeeper gets to that, and let's be honest, a taller goalkeeper does get to that. But like that
is how it works, yeah.
That is how it works, yes. But I also watched it enough times that I'm like, you know what? It's just a really excellent piece of skill from a player who has a good decision, because when Zubamendi loses the ball, both center backs are in position. If he decides to get his head down and run at our center backs, he gets the ball taken off him or we snuff out the danger. The fact that in that moment, in the one split second available to him, he decides to try to lob the keeper and he hits it with the perfect trajectory to get under the bar and over his hand. It's an excellent moment of play. Yes, Zubamendi shouldn't lose it there, but we're in our structure. And I think the fact that we're in our structure and the fact that Spurs have been such limited participants in the game, you're probably dropping your intensity a little. It's a good lesson. Mikel can point to it and be like, this is why you can't drop even for a second. And it was annoying, but I don't know that I think it needs a lot of blame assigned to it, you know?
No, and look, we conceded a goal like that to them in pre-season as well when it was Lewis Skelly that got robbed, probably got fouled. And we are, and it's happened to us before as well. We are actually seeing more of this sort of goal all over the clock. Just look at the Scotland goal against Denmark last week as well. And like maybe we should, no, not maybe, we should tighten up on that a little bit. Like if that's how we're conceding goals, if that's like a kind of popular route to goal against us, I'm okay with that. Like
my counter to that, Tim, is you get 10 shots at that. You're lucky if you score one of them. You know what? That's the kind of chance I can live with. You know?
Well, no, exactly. Yeah, that's what I mean. Like, what's your tactic as the opposing managers? Keep it tight and hope we can get a 45-yard lob.
Yeah, exactly.
For me, the thing much more is Zubamendi. That's more where I'd kind of lay the fault. And it's I want to go and watch the game back because I'm always so tense during these games. I know like the 2 or 3 minutes before, I was like, their intensity is dropping. I can see it. I can see they think they've won this game. And I had that derby from 2 seasons ago in my mind where, again, we're 3-0 up. We're absolutely, the game's kind of won. And then we let them back into it. And I'm thinking, like, don't do that. Because even if Tottenham don't have enough to come back and like get a result or threaten to get a result, you just make the game harder for yourself. Like it wasn't particularly interesting to watch, but the Burnley and West Ham games in the last block that we win 2-0, the last 35 minutes of those games are a tough watch because we shut the game down and nothing happens. But I'm much happier to see that than I am to see like, and you're right, I think it is a lesson. And maybe like for Zubamendi as well, it's a bit like this is a North London derby, like it doesn't stop. Even when they're absolutely rubbish and we're 3-0 up, they will try and take the ball off you and smash it in from 45 yards. So yes, I use it as a lesson. And I do think Arteta's been trying to do that in some of these games. Even these games we've won, he's been a bit like, you know, what was it he said against Burnley? Like we dropped our standards and stuff. He's still, I think, looking for stuff to keep the motivation and the intensity high. And look, maybe this will have a use because of that, because he can point to it.
Yeah. I mean, I'm fine with that. Look, it didn't really add jeopardy into the match because Spurs had so little to offer. Other than I think 2 Xavi Simons speculative shots from outside the box. That was all they managed the whole game. And it was a massacre. It was a complete massacre. It was a fun day. It was a funny day. It was a day. What I loved about it, and I said this on the instant reaction, but I think it bears repeating. Of course I would think that. The narrative about Arsenal this season that I think has been unfair is, oh, they're just defense merchants or set piece merchants. They're the ugliest team. They don't know how to play. And we rock up to this game without our recognized strikers and without our captain and without some players, fine, whatever, without Gabby, our set piece, heart and soul. And this is a game everyone's going to be watching. The North London Derby is always good entertainment. Everyone's going to watch it. It was on for the whole world. It's an island game, nothing else going on. And we played great football. And we played great football with players that aren't necessarily recognized as the stars for us. And we played such great football that the opposition weren't really participants in the game. And for anybody who wanted to laugh at us, we now have the most open play goals in November, right? We have the most goals in the league. We really, I think, stamped our authority on the game and the league and the narrative in such a way that it's going to be very hard for people to try to rewrite it. And I love that happened in a game with such visibility on it. Clive, I saw some grumbling that Mikel should have done more subs sooner or like protected players more. I have to admit, the fact that Timber played all 90 minutes, I mean, I don't know if Ben White's going to start against Bayern Munich. I'd be stunned if that's the case, but I was sort of surprised that Timber played all 90. Were you surprised by any of the sub patterns, or, the fact that like a guy like Timber, who has been, I mean, it's hard to say a player that's season candidate because they all are at this point, but a guy who's so important to us stayed out there the whole 90.
Yeah, there's a few minutes stacking into people. We might see some changes at fullback on Wednesday. And if you do, then so be it, right? So I think, I've got memories of the 4-4 years ago when I was sitting there making dinner arrangements and suddenly they scored 2 goals. And so I didn't want to be part of anything where we're 3-0 up in the derby and we don't win it. So I just don't care. After the game, we could have made a few subs, mate. During the game, I'm thinking, no. Let's make sure we bury these, right? We can talk about it later, That's how I feel. Bury them and let's have a discussion. But I'm fine with it. I think, like I said, I think you saw Calafiori limping towards the end. I don't know if you saw that, Tim, on the pitch. And
he was cramping. I think he was cramping.
Was it cramp? Okay.
Yeah, I think so. Because Gabriel Heinz apparently was on the touchline screaming at him to get up and run it off.
It was definitely like around his hip, though, which is where he had the problem. That's definitely the area he was trying to. That's interesting.
But they were stretching it out. I guess he certainly ran it off and played on it for a little while. He was subbed at the 90th minute, I think.
Yeah, so I don't expect to see him on Wednesday. And so but that's all right, isn't it? Because we know our players now. We can tell when they're edging towards an injury, because normally the game before they have a 7 out of 10 performance or 6.5 out of 10 before. You can see it. I said earlier, the Gabriel injury, maybe that was in the post from Sunderland, and he didn't have his best game there. He wasn't quite his normal self, right? And I'm with you on Timber. And sometimes you can see when something's coming with a player. So maybe we'd all want Timber to play against Chelsea, wouldn't we? So we need to make sure that he's well looked after. And this is the moment, I feel, not to say rotate per se, but just know your players. Just know who they are, If you want Saka play, he has a million touches, right? But he knows when to rest on the pitch. He's very smart at that now. So he might do a 90, but he's clever with it, But again, Wednesday's going to be interesting to see what we do and what team we pick. But yeah, I'm with you. Maybe a little bit more, but at the time, I wouldn't have changed a damn thing.
Yeah, and I think the team's learning how to rest in games too. And I have to admit, I'm learning some things a little bit, because things that I used to be frustrated about, like where's our urgency? You can't just urgently run at a brick wall. That doesn't work. So sometimes if a team is not showing aggression to come at you, you have to just possess the ball in certain areas and allow time to move things around and for players to move around or to drop their focus. You have to allow the game to provide you the moments, because football is fundamentally a moments sport, right? This was a team that played at 1,000 miles an hour the first few seasons, that we started to contend. And we've seen the impact of that with injuries, but you also see the impact of that in terms of it being sustainable over the course of the season. I think we are learning to, maybe it's that Tai Chi thing, or not Tai Chi, whatever it is, the martial art where you let people come on to you a little bit more and it's all defense. Anyway, someone will tell me in the comments, I'm sure, but it's the point that we possess the ball and let the game come to us at times. And I'm learning to be comfortable with that. I want to quickly talk City and Liverpool in the Bayern game before we get out of here. So, Tim, just a last thought on the subs. I think it's great that 2 of our academy kids got on, that Ethan and Miles were able to be out there and be a part of a special day. It will mean something to them, even if it wasn't as big a role as they might have liked. But we did see the return of Nani Madueke. He did play a decent chunk of minutes, and I thought he looked bright. There wasn't a lot of jeopardy left in the game, but I thought it was a bright return. And I couldn't decide if that means that Mikel sees him as ahead of Martinelli for the left wing role, but I actually think I don't think I saw Martinelli warm up. So my guess was I don't think Martinelli was really fit to play. Sometimes you see these players are fit enough for the bench, but there's actually no plan to use them. My guess is they were encouraged not to use them unless they absolutely had to. So I think that was probably more of it. What do you make of Nani, though?
Yeah, I mean, Madueke trained the day before the Sunderland game, I think. So clearly, like, quite a way ahead in terms of fitness. And I think we discussed it on the Sunderland pod. Like, it would have been nice if we could have that 5 minutes of him running around like a lunatic. Well, I know it's more than 5 minutes, but him running around like a lunatic in the North London derby, I think, and I'm not like, I don't know enough about his medical situation to say he definitely could have done that at Sunderland, but I'm saying if he could have, I think we win that game. I think one senior attacking sub and we win that game. And so it's quite pleasing to see him come on and, just like run around quite a lot. And, to the conversation we had about Leo Trossard, he's going to have to run around because otherwise he's not going to get on the pitch. So that was a very, particularly because he was on the left, on the dugout side, that was a very, you've probably seen this, Clive, like when you're coaching, someone's on your side and they're trying to get in the team. And, they're very, did you see that? Did you see me? Yeah. Pointing, I'm chasing stuff down. You saw that? Yeah. It actually reminds me of an anecdote. I think Tony Pulis had Adama Traore when he was younger, and what Pulis used to do was swap Traore over. And so he was always on dugout side because he was like, he ran a lot harder. He'd chase back a lot more when he was on dugout side. So I always used to swap him. But yeah, and again, we need these players back though. I think we saw at the end of the last block, it was 15 minutes too far for them. It's great that we're in a position where we can ease them back in and we don't have to use Martinelli. We give Ødegaard a little bit more time, but we're going to need all of these guys. And that's the lesson of someone like Trossard as well. Again, that Arteta can point to and say, a lot of people, look at how important this guy has been, and quite a lot of people wouldn't have bet on that in August. Yeah,
Clive, you also had I think you said you observed Mikel giving Nani a rollicking at one point. You want to share that?
Yeah, he didn't quite get back into a defensive position, and he's 4-1 at the time, right? And I am beyond happy. And I just see Mikel just waving his arms at him, get back, and he literally roasted him. And then Nani gets back, and he's like, "It's okay, boss. You know what I mean? It's okay." And and it just shows me there's nothing to chance, Elliot. They're leaving nothing to chance, and everyone's doing the work. On match today, they highlighted Eze running back to defend and go back, out sprinted Kudos, I think, and back to the goalkeeper. You got to do it, right? You got to do it. You got to do your work. You got to be able to do it. You got to have the capacity to do it. You know how important it is. And then the goalkeeper gives it back to Eze, and Eze clips it down the line accurately. And that level of technical quality and defensive quality in one player. Same for all the others. And they know the rules, right? They know the rules. This is what you got to do to play. If you don't do it, you won't play. Right? So let's don't be the one that lets everyone down. When Zubimendi travels across the pitch, that's a technical mistake. The two defenders were split wide to receive the ball. So there was a gap, right? We're in offensive shape to receive the ball. He didn't drop it off. That's all right. Just don't do it again, right? And but he won about 1 million headers and was fantastic passing. So it's not a problem. I think I'm loving the collective spirit of the group, I have to say.
Yeah, and I mean, it just it had everything you want in a derby. I really did. Even with their goal, it's North London derby heritage because two of their best goals are that goal they scored yesterday and the Lamela Rabona goal where he got sent off in a 2-1 loss. Like they still replay those goals and they both came in derby losses. So it's Spurs heritage. I just I loved it as a day. It felt so monumental. And look, Bayern's going to be a wake-up call. We're going to get, I think, a little bit of a return to reality with Bayern. Not that I'm saying we'll lose that game. They're going to be good, and we're going to be under pressure at times. It's going to be a very difficult game that we will be fortunate to win if we do. They will probably score. They will probably create chances. This was a very, very easy game. And I think Mikel is maybe lucky to have Bayern midweek in the sense that it will be a refocusing of what it takes to play at the top level because Spurs were so incompetent. They created so little jeopardy. They were such a limited participant in this game. Chelsea is going to be the opposite. Chelsea don't park the bus. They don't have the capacity to park the bus in a way. I think that's great for us, by the way. But the Chelsea game is going to be a game between us and a team that is eager to be the protagonist and eager to cause us problems in a way that Spurs weren't. The Bayern game will be the highest level game of this week. And I think that's good. It's good to get that game between this game and Chelsea because I really don't think Spurs contested this game in a good way. And it's crazy to think that this has them pining for last season when they lost 22 times in the league. They are at sea. They have no direction. They look rudderless. The decisions they've made with their team, I mean, we were probably a few hours away from Eza deal being done to Spurs, and instead we get this hat trick day, and they get Xavi Simons, who, you know, the less said about him, the better. So a couple final points here. I mean, Tim, this game is always important because it's the derby. The derby is always an important game, and when you win the derby in this way, that is always memorable. Mm-hmm. When you win the derby the day after the presumptive title contenders, and I don't know if Liverpool even stay in that group anymore, have lost and City have lost, it feels even bigger. This was a weekend that we're going to all remember a long time if the season continues in the way we want it to. So how special was Saturday for you? And what are your thoughts quickly just on the contours of the title race and you know what we saw over this weekend?
Yeah, I'd say first of all, the amount of shade you just threw on the champions of Europe, Elliot, have some respect.
Yeah. I have a participation trophy here somewhere too. Like, they proved they are the 37th best team in Europe, and they have a trophy that on it. That trophy literally proves they were the 37th best team in Europe.
One of the things I really enjoy actually is there's a technicality where their T-shirts that they had made say winners. And that's because UEFA don't allow the Europa League winners to call themselves champions.
That's incredible.
So that's
tell your Spurs friends.
Nice little nugget for you there. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right in terms of I really like the positioning of this Bayern game because we've done a lot of good work in the Champions League that means that, like, I'd probably take a draw because my mind's on Sunday. My mind's on the Chelsea game. And a lot of that is the way the Champions League has been constructed now. There's not that much jeopardy in it, really. But I'm sure this isn't what UEFA want a massive Champions League game like Arsenal-Bayern to be. But I feel like it's a bit of a free swing. I'm really looking forward to it because every league game feels so massive and so meaningful. I'm sorry to say it, again, UEFA won't enjoy this, but it just feels like a much more low stakes, like, oh, this will be like quite a fun game between two really good teams. Like,
yeah.
When it kicks off, I won't feel like this, but I almost feel like a neutral, you know, when there's just like a really big Champions League game on, like a quarterfinal or a semi-final, and you're like, oh yeah, I can't wait to watch that. Actually, it's like that's not what this competition should be, but that's the way they've designed it. So, in terms of the title race and the contours of it and all of that, I guess what I'd say is like. And I'm not trying to police fans here too much because believe me, I want this very, very badly, like the rest of you. What I'd say is enjoy it. Like, enjoy it. Like, yeah. And I'd have said the same, maybe not last season because it wasn't really a title race, but the season before, even though it didn't go our way and some of that's painful, it's so much better than the alternative. Like, this is what you want to be a football fan for. Like if you want to win stuff as well, it's a bit like if you win a cup, right? You have to go through the cup final, which is horrendous, like a horrendous, torturous couple of hours of your life. But if you want to lift the big shiny trophy at the end of it, you have to go through it. It's the same. The league titles, like 15 cup finals, you really go through the mill. But what you've got to learn to do is enjoy it and don't let it eat you, and don't worry about impressing strangers on the internet who support other teams. Don't worry about that. Don't let it eat you. Enjoy it because it doesn't happen all the time and you miss it. And you know what? Someone posted the morning of the game. It was 6 years to the day we'd played Southampton at home. It was that horrible last Premier League game under Emery where we equalise in the last minute and the stadium's 50% full. Most people aren't even on their feet celebrating. And I looked at the table that day and we were below Wolves, Burnley, Sheffield United and Leicester in the table that day. This, like, I don't want to say these are the good times because, I mean, they are. They are the good times. And we've got to make sure that they're the great times. But when I look back on like the early 2000s and stuff like that, I say this all the time. I took it for granted. And I let that Man United rivalry, for example, I let it be too big. I spoiled it for myself because I was too anxious and I was too uptight about it rather than being anxious and uptight about it, but recognizing like this is fun, this is good, this is why you're a football fan. And yeah, contours of the title race and all that, enjoy it. I love supporting every team that Man City plays. I love supporting every team that Liverpool plays as well as supporting Arsenal, because that's 4 or 5 years ago. Our own matches barely meant anything, and I know what I prefer.
You want to be in a position where the games you play matter. They should always matter, but matter beyond just that day. We have been in that position for a few years now, and it's been enjoyable. And like, I saw some social media account trying to say like, Arsenal celebrating their derby, but they'll probably bottle the title again. And I stopped and I was like, you know what? Maybe we will, maybe we won't. I don't think we will, but I don't care. We just beat Spurs 4-1. The guy they were going to sign came to us and scored a hat trick and laughed at them. Like literally laughed at them. So yeah, I am a big believer in the idea that football cannot just be about what happens at the end. It has to be about what happens along the way. And there's been a lot of good along the way. This among them, Clive.
Yeah, I took the decision yesterday to really enjoy it. I'm suffering a bit today.
Yeah, you're feeling it.
and I just come to that decision. I thought, you know what? That's just too good to just go home with. You know what I mean? It was just too good. I ended up in a pub called the Two Brewers near Caledonian Road. And trust me, there was more than a few people in there decided it's going to be a late one. I met loads of people. And that point about enjoyment, Tim, it's a really good one. There was a lot of joy around yesterday, Elliot. Mate, you'd have loved this day, without a doubt. You'd have loved to have been there. There was a lot of joy. I spent
a lot of time in England in spring. If this keeps
happening, it's going to be there. The bars, they didn't empty for ages where I was. You know, I lost track of time completely. And I think it's a really important point. We're all nervous as hell, right? But when these moments come, don't normalize them. This isn't normal. You know, this isn't normal. I want to say he's one of the best teams I've ever seen. And people say, but what about this team when they won this? And that's the only thing that stopped me from saying it. You know, because I think I know my football a little bit. And I'm looking around this team and it looks really good. However, there's a flip side to this coin. Mikel Merino I thought was fantastic in the game. But if you lose the game and Mikel Merino has one touch in the box, we're going to be saying we need a striker, blah, blah, blah. Things can change very, very quickly with football, how you look at information, how you look at data, based on the results. Spurs obviously looked at the Sunderland game and tried to do something similar. We just brushed that off, took over the game, pushed them back and brushed them off. I wonder what face we're going to show Bayern in the week. But Tim, your point about enjoyment, mate, I think I took it too literally.
Well, I'll tell you what, we're top. We're 6 points clear of Chelsea. We're 7 points clear of City. By the way, Liverpool below United, below Spurs, Bournemouth, Sunderland, Brighton, Palace, Villa. We are top in expected goal difference. We're top in expected goals allowed. I believe we've scored the most goals, right? Yeah, joint most goals with City. Obviously, the fewest conceded. We are in our rightful position right now, and we should just be getting stronger now. So it's very, very exciting. I don't think we need to do a Bayern preview, but I would just ask you this, Clive. Do you regard this as a big game, as a measuring stick, as a game where Mikel should pick this lineup with a mind towards the Chelsea game? How do you think we should approach it? And just how big do you think it is? And then we'll get out of here.
I think it's pretty big. And I remember when we used to play Bayern all the time, and I sort of didn't always go to the games. And then we were out of Champions League for 7 years, and I sort of regretted that. And I think it is going to be important. When you see Harry Kane trot out in their tracksuit, then you'll soon realise that it's a big game. I think that will change and get everyone pumped again. We need to sort of decompress from this game a little bit. But at this moment in time, you could say that Bayern, and Arsenal are two of the best teams in Europe at the moment. So they're going to want to show something to each other.
Yeah.
I just can't see Mikel taking it lightly. But also, I hope he just looks at the potential injuries to certain players that he needs for the weekend, because Chelsea away is a big one. Mate. That's a big one. I'm thinking about going myself. I might have to make a few phone calls. I really think it's one of those you might need to. I feel like I need to be at it, and I think it's a huge game. But then again, you know what? Villa Saturday morning after Brentford at home, that's going to feel like a huge game. We just need to keep taking them one at a time and just keep winning.
I think we're lucky too that Chelsea play Barca this week. They have a big game that they have to focus on, because we've seen that Chelsea in seasons where they didn't have Champions League found it easier to navigate the league. When you have Champions League, it's a little bit different, and so I don't think they can afford to take that game lightly, and I don't think they will. Not that I think we'll take the Bayern game lightly, by the way. So it'll just be, I think, a little bit of a leveler, the fact that they have that game. And I mean, if you look at Chelsea, they currently sit 12th in the Champions League table on 7 points. They're going to want to be in the top 8 if they think they can get into it. And they certainly don't want to risk falling outside of the seeded positions of the knockout phase. So it's a game that matters to them. Not that our game doesn't matter, but it matters arguably even more than that. So at least they will have to be pushed in midweek, which will help. So I think we'll try to get a rewatch of the Spurs game tomorrow, because you got to do that. So join us for that. We will definitely have an instant reaction at full time of the Bayern game, a main pod on Thursday, a Friday night Clive on Friday, an instant reaction after the Chelsea game. So there's something every single day if you want to join us for those, or just be here for these, or whatever you want. If you have any questions, let us know. We're always happy to answer them. But what a special weekend we just got treated to. I mean, it made me happy enough just seeing Liverpool collapsing, and then we get to do that to Spurs and City losing. What a brilliant weekend. I hope you enjoyed it as much as we did, but maybe not quite as much as Clive did. So let's leave it there. Clive, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Tim, thanks, man.
My pleasure as always.
All right, everybody. We'll talk to you on the next one. We love you, and we'll talk to you after Arsenal 10. Bayern.